Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Arsaholics podcast on Wednesday. No,
Thursday.
I always do, mate. I'm not so bad at this. Like Thursday. That's what I should probably put in my notes as well at the top. What day of the week it is?
Yeah, maybe.
Thursday. Happy Thursday, everyone, for listening in. You got Raj here. I've got Mize with me. Hello, Mize.
Hey, mate. How's it going?
Good, man. Good. So, guys, thank you again for tuning in. Right. So please share, subscribe, all those fun stuff. Please, we really appreciate it. And we today we were, last episode. If you guys listened to our last episode, we reviewed the central midfield options that Arsenal have, how we could possibly see that shaping up next season, the sorts of players that we want in. Miles and I were sort of this morning thinking about what we were going to cover today exactly, and there was a few things that had happened in the news, relating to Arsenal that we thought that we could sort of touch upon. And we provisionally did agree on that, and it was probably the greatest provisional agreement that we've made in a while, because since this morning, there's all kinds of craziness. So let's talk about the main news story of the day. If you're an Arsenal fan, to be honest, actually, like the main news story this morning was probably going to be the fixtures, but another main news story has happened today, which in the blink of an eye we've been linked with signing a player who has a name very similar to a legend of ours, Vieira. So it's Fabio Vieira, right? Is that right? Have I got the first name? It's Fabio?
Yeah, Fabio.
Yeah, Fabio Vieira. A journalist from Portugal broke this news story pretty sort of late in the UK afternoon hours. I think that was the only thing going around on Twitter, and then all of a sudden, bang! All of a sudden, the credible journalists are all reporting Arsenal are in talks to sign Fabio Vieira from Porto. Fee is agreed, terms are agreed, he's flying for a medical tomorrow morning, all in the blink of an eye. Now, my first reaction to this was, I have no idea who this guy is.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that we had no idea about it before today. I mean, what do you think? Like this era of social media where we have all these links, Arsenal interested in so-and-so, interested in this player, hold interest in that guy. The same news stories regurgitated. And if there is any genuine interest, then every couple of days, it's just recycling of that news story over and over again. The Gabriel Jesus thing, which we'll come on to, has been sort of bubbling for a little while. When every week it seems like someone exclusive, Arsenal are closer to signing Gabriel Jesus, when it's just longing it out. There's clearly no real new information there. This, bang, done. Like, guy is flying in tomorrow. He's gonna sign for Arsenal Football Club tomorrow. What did you think about that news story today?
Yeah, exactly the same as you, mate. Like, where the hell did that come from? Probably the same as every single other Arsenal fan was thinking when they heard the news. And to be honest, I think when Aaron sent it in our WhatsApp group, I looked at it and I thought, like, didn't recognise the journalist, didn't recognise the source. And I just sort of, like, looked at it, but it wasn't a case of not believing it, because it wasn't like it was a high-profile player, but it was almost like, okay, let's see what happens kind of thing. And like you say, within the hour or so, all of the usual kind of top sources started, putting their tweets out as well. So yes, pretty mental for it to happen this way. And I think it's really, really interesting that, I'm not really sure how the club have managed to kind of keep it under wraps. And I guess when you think about it, it's obviously quite possible if they kind of keep the circle of knowledge in terms of who knows about this deal pretty small. And I guess the club released the information that they want to, but it does feel like this just never happens. It just doesn't happen anymore. Or it definitely doesn't happen with Arsenal. Absolutely doesn't happen with Arsenal. We tend to be, like you say.
I don't think it happens with anyone.
Yeah, no, there's probably the odd deal that kind of comes out of the blue.
So if you're Burnley or someone, like when you're a top side,
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I was in shock, and then obviously you start to do the thing where you're like, right, like you say, who is this guy? I have no idea. We didn't even know what position he played, and then you start sort of digging around a little bit, and people start tweeting, and you start to see the compilations and everything, and you get a bit excited, and I mean, look, I think. I'm surprised. I mean, look, if we're just going to talk about him as a player and what we know so far and the deal and that kind of thing, I'm still quite surprised in terms of the profile and the position, to be honest. And I guess maybe that's partly because he's sort of the first, or looks like he's going to be the first major summer signing. Because obviously the priorities are sort of elsewhere, right? And you would have expected kind of the Tielemans deal to maybe happen first, the Gabriel Jesus deal to happen first, and obviously it hasn't happened that way. So I guess I'm quite surprised from that perspective, but I guess it doesn't really matter what order you sign the players in as long as you sign them all within a window. And I'm quite surprised at sort of the age profile as well, because I think the talk this summer was all about we're going to be going for established, potentially Premier League experienced players of a kind of older age bracket compared to last summer. And obviously this guy is not that at all. He's very, very inexperienced. I wouldn't say he's very, very inexperienced, but he's not, 22 years old. I think he's just turned 22. I think he's had like 1 or 2 seasons in the first team at Porto, not many. And like I say, it doesn't really fit the profile that we were apparently targeting this summer. And I'm not complaining at all because I've never seen the guy play. So, I'm not making any judgment or anything like that, or judging the transfer and is he the right person to buy or anything like that. Because I think we said last season, after last summer, let them play and see how they do after they've actually played for the club, because we made that mistake. Or a lot of people made that mistake last summer and last season. But yeah, man, it's it seems like a really, really exciting signing in terms of, his position. And like I say, it's limited kind of information that we've got in terms of basically watching a few clips here and there. And obviously, like someone tweeted, controversially, I guess you could say, but a good way of looking at it as well is, look, Pepe looked great in his YouTube compilation. I'm not saying he's not great, but it didn't work out for him, so who knows what's going to happen. But yeah, just in terms of this particular player, Vieira, he seems to be a player that just absolutely loves being on the ball. And we were talking about it, right? Some of the players that he reminded us of, or reminds us of, from sort of past Arsenal midfields, and specifically kind of attacking central midfielders.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And picking up on a lot of the things that you've said, Arsenal already last season, one of the youngest teams in the Premier League. For all our weaknesses, for all the big distance that we are away from the clubs who are right at the top of the league, we have this young project, and seemingly all these pundits, all these not pundits, but all of these football experts from around Europe do confirm, a nice feeling around Arsenal, which is that, it's one of the most exciting young projects in Europe. A lot of people in Europe see Arsenal as this really exciting young project with a young manager, with very specific technical ideas and young players and etc. It's a great coup in that way, right? Because on paper, this guy is one of the highest performing young players in Europe. Again, you and I, first to admit, know nothing about the guy aside from the research we've done today. Yeah. But he is someone who's got the most assists in Portugal last season, scored 7 goals as well. So I think 14 assists, 7 goals. And it's a league where, historically, they export really successful players to the Premier League. You know? Particularly Porto, Benfica, those sides, you tend to get really good players. And recently there's been a lot of really good success stories from there. And so to think that at this point in time, it feels like there's huge amounts of premium on young talent. Mm-hmm. We've seen Haaland, we've seen... I'm not putting this guy in Haaland's bracket, but bear with me. You've seen the sort of price that people are paying for these top talents. Tchouaméni from France. No one really heard about him 18 months ago. And he's only had, I think, 18 months at Monaco and one really great season. Suddenly he's going for 100 million euros, right? The premium for top talent is huge. And the numbers quoted, right? Allegedly, Vieira has a release clause for, I think it was, say, 50 million euros or 40 million euros. I think 50 million euros, something like this. But allegedly... we've negotiated this fee lower than that. So this isn't a case where we're just randomly triggering some guy's release clause, which again brings me to a point, that at the beginning when we were talking about the kind of silence around this deal. I think I think we really need to step back and really applaud the club for keeping this under wraps, like you said, because if this was a case where they went and just activated a release clause, that's different. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't sound like that is the case. It does not sound that. And if you're trying to attract some of the top talents in Europe, and in this case, by the way, Jorge Mendes, who is a super agent, is kind of doing, is involved in this deal. The chances of keeping something that down, Well, I'm not sure if he is his agent, and you know how now you get these super agents who work to broker these big deals, you know. So he brokered this deal. When you get super agents like that involved, there is no incentive for those agents or the clubs to keep this under wraps, as in not as in the selling club and the agent. There's no incentive to keep it under wraps. You might as well try and get the most money for your player, get the most, and the higher the fees, the higher the commissions and all that kind of stuff. But this is genuinely, no one has picked this up. Now, maybe in the game, maybe there are football clubs who did know and were aware about this going on. But as far as the journalists are concerned, no one had a clue apart from this guy in Portugal. So, I really credit to the club for keeping this on the low. I think it's really, and I think it really helps if we get this over the line tomorrow. It really helps manage a lot of the fans' anxiety, I think, this summer, because it makes you realise that it doesn't matter what you hear. There are things that are going on in the background, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I think everyone was losing. Sorry, I was going to say everyone was losing their shit the other day, weren't they? After the Basuma story broke, him going to Spurs, and I saw, I tuned into a couple of. Not podcasts, but just social media basically, and a couple of channels, and the reaction was pretty crazy considering we're a couple of weeks into the transfer window. We've got a while to go until the season starts, and a lot of teams haven't done any business yet, not just us, and people were really starting to stress out. And I get it. I do get it, because historically, we've not been fantastic in transfer windows. Like, we don't seem to ever get everything we need to get done. But like you say, this hopefully eases a few people's or a few Arsenal fans' minds. And like you say, it's really refreshing to just for it to be as simple as this, right? And to not be tracking planes and bloody analysing photos to see what kind of car that the player's travelling in to go to the medical and all that stuff that Arsenal fans have become like classic fans for, and becoming these sort of detectives and spies. So hopefully it goes through, and it's just less stressful, isn't it, for all of us?
It is. It is. It's a lesson to everyone. Look, just because you're not hearing anything doesn't mean there's nothing that's being done behind the scenes. Yeah. And let's hope it continues this way. Obviously, there are a couple of players that we're still in for that have got a lot of publicity at the moment. Those deals: Gabriel Jesus, Yuri Tillmans. And let's talk a little bit. We might touch on a couple of those later. But Miles, let's talk about Vieira in terms of the player, that he is apparently, and how that sort of fits in, right? So from what we know, and it's quite interesting, because just before we did this pod, I saw on Sky Sports News the agent the journalist that broke that story in Portugal was on Sky Sports News, and he was talking a little bit about the player. And he said, look, he's a right winger. That's his position. He's a right winger who can play in central areas. That's essentially what he is. He's not very fast, but he's incredibly smart and intelligent, sort of off the ball, very technical. So, interested me that he was very, he was very sure in his statement of this guy is a right winger. So all the kind of footage that I've seen of this guy, shows him playing in various areas of the pitch. And there's been lots of people on Twitter, I think, saying this guy is someone who can play as an 8, and sometimes as a deeper sort of midfielder and as a 10. But it does sound like this guy's predominantly a right winger who can play maybe as a number 10 as well. He's 5'7", very small guy. But an incredible technician, apparently. So given that profile, everything I've just said there, and everything else that I don't know if there's anything you want to add about what you know of the player, what do you think that means? What sort of role do you think that Arteta might be envisaging for this guy? Because we're not going to spend, even if it's not that much money, I mean, he's probably not someone who's signed to just kind of be a backup player.
No, I mean, I don't think, and I don't think you can say it's not that much money, because I think this summer every penny counts for us, right? We're trying to get absolute maximum for the players that we're obviously trying to move on. So it probably is, in terms of our budget overall, it probably is a pretty big chunk of that, I would have thought, especially considering the big spend last summer. I mean, that's a really, really interesting question. And I was going to ask you the same thing, because when you obviously look, from what we've seen so far on Twitter, in terms of analysis of how he plays, where he plays, his heat map from the season. I don't know if you've seen it. And when you watch clips of him, he's and you said it in the group chat, he's very, very similar to Ødegaard in a lot of ways. And he seems to play in a very similar way to Ødegaard. And he seems to occupy similar positions to Ødegaard. So on the face of it, in terms of the player that we're buying and, what he's doing and done for Porto. I'm honestly not sure, but it does, and we touched on this last week when we spoke about the kind of midfield. Potentially, there is a change of system coming in. I don't think I'm not sure we're necessarily signing him. I don't think we're signing him as kind of like a backup to Ødegaard. I'm not really sure that is necessarily. I don't really think that's the case. But I think, and I said this when we were linked with Jesus, I said this when we were linked with Jesus whenever it was, a month ago, 2 months ago, whatever. I feel like Arteta is trying to, number one, he's obviously, we have to build a bigger squad, and the squad needs to be, the standard throughout the squad needs to be at a similar level in terms of when a player in the first team is out, the player that comes in, the standard we can't really afford to drop. We can't really afford to go from a Tomiyasu to a Cedric, for example, throughout the season, next season with so many games. So I feel like he's building the squad where you've almost got two very good players in every position, in theory and on paper. And I think also, I think he's trying to find players, and he or they, the club, are identifying players that can play in multiple positions. And you sort of touched on it, right? Where he can play right wing. What I read was, he plays right wing. He can play as an attacking midfielder. He can play right central midfield. And I think that's where he played for Porto this season. He played in a 4-4-3, 4-3-3, even on the right hand side of that midfield. So obviously
on the right hand side of the middle midfield.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that, but that's sort of what I saw today. So yeah, I mean, I think it's like I say, it's bringing in players that are adaptable to different systems and different positions, and like Gabriel Jesus fits that mold. And even with Tielemans, you could potentially argue: is he going to play deep lying? Is he going to play further forward? We don't really know yet. And I think that's really, really interesting. I really want to get your thoughts on what you think, how he might fit in, basically.
So when we were talking the other day about the types of positions that we think Arsenal are going to sign, the position that I was really worried that we weren't going to sign, because it feels like in theory it might not be as big a priority as the other areas, is someone who can provide backup to Ødegaard.
Yeah.
And additionally, we've seen how hard last season was on Saka by not having someone who could adequately come in and back him up. And again, that's a real statement to how Pepe sort of let us down last season, I think. But in that way, this is perfect, right? Because you've got this guy who plays on the right hand side and can operate centrally. Mm-hmm. So it's not even about being backup to these players, as we sort of discussed in previously. You need a squad this season that's going to be able to rotate. It's this concept of almost first team players and backup players.
Yeah.
It probably needs to get in the bin. When you talk about these squads, when you talk about the squads of the clubs ahead of us, say the top clubs in the Premier League, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, there isn't really a concept of that, right? There's so many players. You wouldn't say this is exactly their starting 11. Bernardo Silva doesn't always start all their games. Mahrez doesn't start all their games. Sterling doesn't start all their games. I don't think you could regard anyone as a backup player. And yes, we are not playing in the Champions League. We're playing in the Europa League. We are a level below those teams still, but the concept still applies. You still need a squad, and you still need to rotate. So on that note, so if we've got a player in him who can play in those different positions, then for me it's just brilliant, because he'll start loads of games. He'll start probably, arguably as many games as anyone else would, maybe, potentially, because he can, allegedly he can still play on the left, and maybe we'll play different systems, like you say. So I think, mate, and this is, and I want to get your views on this, because I know you're quite passionate about this point. This feels to me that we are adding a technically gifted attacking player into our squad, and that's a nice little throwback to the past, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we spoke about it, you and Aaron, and said it again earlier when we were talking about him and this when the news broke, and I'm sure a lot of other Arsenal fans are probably thinking the same. And exactly. Like, it is a bit of a throwback to Arsenal midfielders of old, where we used to have a lot. We were blessed. We were blessed with these, technically gifted, kind of nimble, skillful, attacking midfielders with like great vision, great passing ability, all of that stuff, and just really, really nice players to watch, and when I watched, the first kind of compilation video that I watched today, the two players, and it's interesting because I think you said a different player, but the first two players the first player that came to mind when I watched him was Cesc Fabregas. And I just, when I was watching him on the ball and the way he looks up and picks a pass, which sounds like the most simple thing for an attacking midfielder to be doing, but just the way that he was doing that, it reminded me so much of Fabregas. And then the other player, maybe it's just a Portuguese thing, is in the back of your mind, is Bernardo Silva. I think you might have said he reminds you of Odegaard. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, that was exactly. But I think partly that's because he was left-footed, and there was something about the way that he was controlling the ball and moving it. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no. So, what were we talking about? Midfielders in the past.
Yeah, I mean, because the point is, when we looked at the Wenger era, there were those quotes from Arteta, right, that he made a while ago, where he referred to that era where you had Carzolas, Rosicki's, Wiltshire's, you name it. You had a squad full of technicians, right? Players that could play in various areas of the pitch and just were technically gifted, creative players. And we had loads. And we haven't had that for a while. We haven't had a squad of those kinds of players for a while. Yeah. And it's so, and we saw, having Odegaard, what, how awesome it is to have players like that in your team. And it was just, it was a problem we discussed last season frequently. When teams stop Odegaard, it was an issue for us. And if you've got Odegaard in your team and you've got a player like this, and some games, they'll probably play together, that's going to be really problematic for teams to solve, right? Because you can't play a system where you try and work them both out of the game, and then you've got other players, that you've got to take care of. You've got to take care of Saka. You've got to take care of, whoever else is on the pitch. It's too difficult to just to stop a team who doesn't have one focal point. And Odegaard was the conductor. And if you look at Man City, for example, teams can't just stop De Bruyne, because you what are you going to do? You've got Bernardo Silva who's going to come, and start dictating play. Yeah. So you can't do that. So you need technicians. The Arsenal of old was so hard to stop because you had just all these technicians. All these guys that could do that, make something out of nothing, play in the half space. So it's really nice to see that. And there's a lot of people sort of saying, well, what does this mean for people like Smith Rowe? Do you have any concerns about any of the existing squad of adding sort of a player in that who plays across that three?
No, concerns in terms of what, that they're not going to get enough minutes, or they might be surplus, or
for the development of any of our current players.
No, not really. I mean, there's the number of games, the number of additional games that we hopefully should have this season. I mean, if you think about last season, mate, we went out of, I know we got to the semi-finals of the League Cup, but the FA Cup we went out early doors, the third round was it? I can't remember, but very early. No Europe. And even then, we struggled with the squad, right? We struggled towards the back end of the season and in parts of the season when we lost certain players. So, not really. I don't have that concern. I think, like I mentioned it, right? Ideal scenario would be 2 quality players for every single position, right? And I feel like this season is one of those seasons where we're probably going to need that. And I think there's just opportunity for different players to stake their claim and kind of get themselves ahead. There's competition basically for places, and I think that's always a good thing as well. Odegaard is now no longer necessarily guaranteed of his starting role. I mean, he probably is, because he's so important to us. But
but we can rest him.
We can rest him, exactly. Well. Yeah. Hopefully that's it. And I think the other really, really exciting thing is, you've got Odegaard, who's I think 23, Smith Rowe, who's 21, and now you've got Vieira, who's just turned 22 last month. And like what a kind of an age profile of these players. These are not guys that are coming towards the end of their careers. These are not guys that have turned up at a sort of 29, 30, whatever, and coming for a massive contract. These are guys that are now, probably number one, looking to be successful with us. But I'm sure, if that doesn't happen with us, but they perform, then, I mean, I'm not saying this is what we want to happen, but ultimately every player has a price. And if you're buying players at this sort of price range and they excel and they do really well, but the club and the team don't necessarily do as well, if that makes sense, it means that, you're potentially looking at a bigger club or another European club coming in and paying huge money for one of these players, because they're all, well, I'm talking about Vieira as if I've ever seen him play. Obviously I haven't, but on paper they are all very, very big talents, let's say. So I think it's a really, really exciting signing. And Quite interesting as well. Just to touch on one thing you said about kind of him potentially deputising Saka. So like from what I've seen, he's a very very different player to Saka. And like I said, he reminds me of a Fabregas, for example, the guy pulling the strings, picking out the through ball, picking out like an attacking pass. And I didn't really see him doing much of sort of like running at people and taking them on. So that'll be really interesting, because if he does end up playing on the right wing, does that mean again a change of system? Does that mean Saka maybe switches to the other side, or if he's going to potentially like, for me, I'm not sure if we're talking about the squad and let's say someone does come in for Pepe and Pepe does leave, I'm not sure I would feel like we would sign another right-sided or another like kind of wide attacking player.
Okay. So you don't think that there was a question I was actually going to ask you. So, first, part A of what I was going to ask you is, does this signal even more so the end of Pepe? If you've got a player who like this can come in and is allegedly someone who's comfortable playing on the right-hand side, does this mean that we can get rid of Pepe?
I think the writing's been on the wall for Pepe this season. I think he started I could be wrong on this. I think I saw he started 4 league games last season. I don't know if that's true or not. And yeah, there were games where he just wasn't coming off the bench when sometimes when we needed a goal. And he for whatever reason, it seems like, he's fallen out of favour with Arteta or whatever it is. And yeah, I can't really see a way back for him. I think last season was the season for him to build on the season before, the kind of COVID season, to build on that season, because he had a decent season and to kind of really have an impact. And that hasn't happened for one reason or another. So yeah, I think I'm sure that the club are trying to see if there's any interest in him. But the problem that we have is, it's obviously we spent huge money on him and he's probably on massive wages, and it's now trying to recoup some of that fee. I don't even think we've paid off. I don't even think we paid off his transfer fee yet. So it'll be quite funny. Not funny, but it'll be a bit of a joke if we don't get back what we still owe Lille. So yeah, it's more of a case of if someone comes in for him and Go on, sorry.
And just picking up, so picking up then, something that you said about someone who remind you of. You said he reminded you of Fabregas. Do you think there's any chance you can? I know again we're going by what we've seen on clips on Twitter and YouTube or whatever. But could he be someone who plays in that kind of deeper sort of midfield roles? Is he someone that could play alongside Partey, do you think?
It's probably too early for me to say, to be honest.
Fair enough.
I mean, look, he if you're talking about kind of the reputation that he's coming with, again, neither of us had heard of him before today, right? So obviously his reputation wasn't like all of the big clubs in Europe were after him. But at the same time, now that we've looked at kind of what he's done and his kind of CV, albeit it's quite a short CV because of his age, there's some really, really exciting things to sort of there's a lot of things to be excited about. I'm really not sure if he could play in that role. I feel like I don't know, because like you say, he's a pretty small guy. I guess his age profile probably means that he's not maybe not completely physically developed yet as well. Playing central midfield in the Premier League, I'm not sure if that would necessarily suit his game and suit his kind of physique. But honestly, mate, it's so early to kind of to know. Who knows what the plan is? But I think we should just be excited that he's coming. Yeah,
totally agree. And sort of, I think part of the excitement, right, is that we didn't necessarily expect us to sign a player in this sort of position. I suppose the question to you is: do you think this will impact anything else that you thought we'd do in the summer?
I don't think so. I think it's obviously, I mean, it's pretty obvious now when a signing like this comes out of the blue, as we talked about. The club have a plan, right? They have a plan. They obviously know who they want to get. I mean, some of those targets are obviously public in Tielemans and Jesus. They've already started. This isn't our first summer. This isn't our first signing. We signed a backup goalkeeper. We signed Marquinhos. So yeah, I think the club are just executing the plan and this doesn't seem like this. Obviously, you wouldn't say this is a signing that is sort of this is not at the end of the transfer window, I guess is what I'm trying to say. This isn't like a panic buy or anything like that. It's obviously someone that the club have been looking at. I can imagine, again, a lot of clubs have been looking at him. Like, I think he had a fantastic Euro under-21s tournament, under-21s Euros tournament. I think he was named player of the tournament. you know, and very, very highly rated in Portugal. So I'm sure we've been looking at him for a while, and they've decided to pull the trigger.
He played very well against Liverpool in the Champions League as well.
I heard
he got at least one assist.
Yeah. So maybe Liverpool fans know a bit about him, but and he was linked with Tottenham, and I think he was linked with Liverpool maybe off the back of that game that they played against the Porto.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't think it does, mate. I think there's clearly a plan, kind of similar to last season. There was a plan in place. There was a plan in January. Plan didn't come off in January, and I think that you know, we've got our targets, and I think it's also got to be balanced with how much do we get for certain players that we're trying to offload as well. That could be quite a big factor in terms of sort of towards the back end of the transfer window. You know, if we've recouped enough, can we then go and get, I don't know, that like the backup centre back, whatever, like another position that maybe isn't the highest priority, but you know what I mean, right? So yeah.
So, you know, we've spent half an hour talking about someone who, in theory, hasn't actually signed for Arsenal yet. So this will be really poor if he doesn't end up signing. But, you know, talking about that, you know, we talked about sort of the positions he can play, and potentially, you know, that might sort of, he can sort of play in that right hand side potentially. But talking of that right hand side, yeah, we did announce another signing a few days ago, which you alluded to, and in Marquinhos from Sao Paulo. So we signed Marquinhos. He's about 19 years old, I think. He's, you know, not spent a huge amount of time in Sao Paulo's first team, but is someone that is seemingly incredibly highly rated in Brazil. We got him for next to nothing, 3.5 million, I think it was, and the rumours are that, you know, it was we could have got him for free in theory. It sounds like actually. You know, there was something in his contract which meant he could go for free. It sounds like we've paid them something, and that's partly seemingly out of goodwill, which is perhaps Edu just trying to make sure that he keeps his connections in Brazil sweet. I mean that in a good way, because clearly, you know, we're going to rely on those relationships a lot, and this kid is likened in many ways to Gabriel Martinelli. You know, he's sort of similar in that he's young, he's very raw, he's clearly got lots of talent. He's an attacking wide player. He's someone who seemingly has played on the right-hand side a lot. Now, Miles, he's 19 years old. I think that if reports are to be believed, it's still a case of we'll be assessing him to think, you know, as to whether he can be in the first team. But the thing is, people said that about Martinelli as well, and when he joined, and Martinelli was immediately in the first team. You know, potentially, it's interesting, isn't it? Potentially, if he joins and he goes straight into the first team, that's two really. There's two first team additions to that right hand side, both who speak Portuguese. So look, everyone's going to have to learn Portuguese in this team, but certainly Nicolas Pepe is, if he's going to like try and continue with the club. What do you think about this Marquinhos signing? Is it one for you, one for the future? You hopefully can make an impact this season?
Yeah, I think the expectation on him is pretty low. Like, I've not even, being completely honest, like the amount of, like, compared to the research that I did on Vieira signing. It's so weird when you say Vieira signing, because you have to use his first name, otherwise it's just like, it just feels weird. But compared to kind of what I was sort of trying to find out about the new signing today, I've not looked at anything on Marquinhos, and being completely honest, I've not looked at any kind of compilations and stuff. Partly because I don't really want to get myself super excited about a 19-year-old player that you know has, like you say, has not had much first team experience, and then you kind of you hype him up in your head, and then you expect him to do amazing things, especially because he's Brazilian. Then you've got the Gabriel Martinelli kind of comparison point as well, like you said. Then he plays and maybe he doesn't hit the ground running, and then you feel a bit disappointed. So I'm sort of trying to stay away from all of that. But my expectation is overall low in terms of what I'm expecting from him this season. If he can kind of, I wouldn't even say he's necessarily a case of he needs to break into the first team. I think if he's in and around the squad, which obviously it sounds like he's going to be, because Edu, from the comments from Edu, I think he said, you know, he'll be joining the club or the team for pre-season. So it sounds like he's going to have a pre-season with Arsenal, and he's going to be with us this season, as opposed to being sent out on loan or anything like that. You know, and I think the interesting thing this season as well is 5 subs now, right? As in, you can make 5 subs in the Premier League.
Yes.
So that adds like another kind of, interesting element onto things, in terms of the squad. And you know, it means that certain players in the squad are going to get even more game time, and it makes it even more of a squad game, arguably. And maybe, well, I'm not saying maybe, but you know, it tends to in theory it should favour the kind of bigger clubs and the clubs with a bit more money, because they're obviously going to have a better second 11 or a better subs bench. So, yeah, but like I say, I don't know all that much about him. But I was going to ask you if you do, and kind of like the way he plays, and kind of, is it right wing only, or can he play anywhere else?
I think he's left-footed. I think he's left-footed, which is interesting because we've signed, in both these players, left-footed players who play on the right-hand side of the pitch. So that's interesting because Saka's left-footed as well, isn't he? Yeah. So that's a very interesting technical choice from the club. Look, he looks like to me someone who's just got lots of raw pace, is a very direct player, and I don't really know too much outside of that. What I do know was when we signed him, and I looked at his Twitter account, and I looked at when he posted that, I think he retweeted Arsenal saying that we had signed him. I looked through all the comments. It's really interesting because obviously the majority of these comments are in Portuguese from Sao Paulo fans, and I was translating all of them, and it was really interesting because the translations were all really angry at him, like really annoyed. Like they're like, "How could you have done this to us? Like this is, I hope you suffer at your new club. I hope the disloyalty you've shown us." And I was really buoyed by that because you want them to be upset he's leaving, don't you? You don't want them to be happy about it because actually, on the flip side, and again, I really hope good things for him at Arsenal for the rest of his career. But Nuno Tavares, I remember when we signed him, I remember doing a similar thing, and Benfica fans were just really confused. Okay, like why have Arsenal signed him? This is really weird. So this is the opposite, right? Yeah. They're genuinely really annoyed. So that's good. That makes me feel good. I personally, my gut, not knowing much about him at all, apart from again what I've seen on for clips and stuff, I really would love to see him part of the first team. Partly for your reason, 5 subs. Having that kind of, seems like a very explosive guy, really high pace, high octane sort of bloke. Have that option to come on, Hail Mary, sort of thing. When you've got 5 subs, why not? And he'll get minutes. We've got cup games, etc. So really excited about that. Let's touch a little bit. We're going to get onto maybe our pursuit of Gabriel Jesus. This Brazilian / Portuguese speaking revolution. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? It's amazing how Arsenal do this. We've had the French Revolution during, our amazing eras under Wenger. There was basically a German Revolution for a while, right, with the Mustafis or German speaking, at least, should I say? All that kind of load of players. And now we firmly enter the Brazilian / again Portuguese, like for the hell of it, let's go with Portuguese speaking revolution. It's amazing how this happens, and I wonder, right? Like, is that something that goes into the coaches and the technical directors' mind? Do they think about that? Do you reckon?
What do they think about? Trying to change the kind of clubs,
creating a bit of to some extent, sort of thinking that actually, do these sort of, I'm going to say swades of ideas, this kind of big cultural overload. Does that help in some way? I mean, there's arguments to say no. Like at the end of the day, like there's probably a problem there because then you might just get 2 factions. You almost have the Portuguese speaking bunch and everyone else. But there's clearly a direction, right? Like we are signing these types of players.
Yeah. I mean, like it's pretty good, isn't it? Because imagine it was like, I don't want to name any nations, but it's pretty good that it's like a Brazilian connection. And we're becoming more Brazilian because that's the type of player that you want, especially in like the midfield and forward areas. I mean, I don't know if it's it's a conscious kind of club culture type change thing. I guess, I mean, maybe it's just more of a case of when you've got Arsene Wenger as your manager and his links obviously into the French market and blah blah blah. It's natural that he's going to find, and he did obviously find a few gems in France, and he knew he had more insight about certain French players than other people would have. And similarly with Edu, right? His previous role for Brazil, I think it was like team coordinator or something like that, first team coordinator or something like that. So I can't remember his exact title, but obviously he must have had a really close relationship with the Brazilian team, and as a result, the kind of younger players coming through as well, and you can obviously see that with some of the signings that we're making. So I don't know, mate, because I guess it's that balance, like you say. You don't want to create 2 factions. You don't want to create a divide in the squad or in the team. Especially when things start to go badly. So I'm not sure, but like I said, I'm all for it because, who wouldn't want more Brazilian flair, exciting players to watch when you're, yeah, that's what it's all about, basically, isn't it? Having these exciting players to watch. So yeah, I'm all for it.
I agree. So the main Brazilian we've been linked with in this window is Gabriel Jesus. He was basically the first big link that started since when the season finished, and it's been trotting along a little bit. I think a lot of the journalists would have probably preferred it to sped up because they're now, again, as I mentioned before, just recycling information. But today, on the same day that this whole Fabio Vieira story broke, there have been some not increasing, but a bit more traffic on the Jesus deal. And in fact, Sky again, Sky are usually slowest to everything, right? For those of you not in the UK, Sky are incredibly slow to report news. But when they put something on their yellow banner at the bottom, it generally has to be confirmed 1 billion times. And their yellow banner was just going across this evening saying Arsenal in talks for Gabriel Jesus. For them to do that, For them to do that usually means that it's something that it's been verified by 1 million people. Now, I think we don't need that element verified. I think it's very clear that Arsenal are in talks for Gabriel Jesus, but it does seem like, by all reports, it is closer to being done. There's a fee that's closer to being agreed. It sounds like everyone's saying that Man City are holding out for around 50 million. That's how much they value him. I'd be very surprised if Arsenal pay 50 million for someone who's in their last year of contract. Arsenal probably in a very good bargaining position as well. It sounds like Jesus wants to come. What do you think, Mize? Again, at the risk of us speaking about this as a topic, every week or so, is there anything additional you want to say about this pursuit? Are you feeling more confident that it'll happen? Are you feeling happier at the prospect of it happening?
Definitely the latter. When that news broke about Jesus being strongly linked with us, I think we were still kind of towards the end of the season, I think. And
yes, that's true. It was,
yeah, a bit a while now. And me and you seem to be of the same view in terms of our group, right? With Aaron and Nero, me and you seem to be of the same view in terms of what he'd bring. And Aaron sort of had certain questions, which are valid, to be fair. And a lot of that is around, is it just Jesus, or is it Jesus plus one other forward or one other striker, which I think is a massive question that we await the answer to. But am I excited about him? Do I rate him? Would I want him? Yes, and yes. I remember when he came to City, and he was very, very young, kind of similar to Marcelli, Marquinhos. He came with a massive reputation, probably bigger than both of those for sure, actually. And obviously, the narrative with City was, he's the next Aguero,
heir to Aguero, yeah.
And that isn't necessarily, that obviously that hasn't happened. Aguero was kind of an elite player, and all of that. But I feel that kind of hinders his. When people make an opinion of him, I think they kind of keep Aguero's in the back of their mind when they judge Jesus and his City career. But look, I don't want to. Yeah, we could talk about his stats and we could debate about how many minutes has he played and versus his goals and assists per minute and all the rest of it. And there's lots of things to kind of think. But I think again, what I said earlier, right? What Arteta's potentially looking for from the players that he's bringing in, a forward that could potentially play anywhere across the front three. And he can play as a number 9. He can play kind of in one of the wider positions. It gives him that kind of adaptability. I feel like it's a no-brainer as long as the money's right for the club. I just feel like it's an absolute no-brainer if a player like that becomes available. I'm very, very surprised that kind of other clubs haven't essentially gone for him, or maybe they have, and for whatever reason he prefers us. Maybe it's that Brazilian revolution that's happening with us that is attracting him to us.
The Arteta connection,
exactly, the Arteta thing as well. So I'm kind of like, if he's in my mind, it's like I absolutely hope the deal gets done. And I'm not saying he's necessarily the answer to our kind of striker problem, but like I say, when a player like Jesus becomes available, I think you absolutely go for it and do everything you can to get him, because I genuinely don't think he would be out of place at a Real Madrid. I don't think he'd be out of place at Chelsea. He wasn't out of place at City. Like you were saying before, right? City don't play the same 11 every week. They don't have a first 11. They have a spine. They have their keeper. They have Ruben Dias. They have Kevin De Bruyne. You know, and that's probably it. Like, I think everyone else is pretty much, they've got a second.
And it was, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, you know, despite that, Jesus was still a very, very important player for them. Pep raves about him. I can't see any downside to it. And to be honest, like, who cares if you drop 50 million on him? I said this last summer, like, if the guy that we want becomes available, we've how many times have we missed out on a player because, we didn't put, you know, allegedly we didn't spend the money, like we didn't up the offer by that 5 or 10 million. And we were so hamstrung for so many reasons, or mainly for one reason, the stadium, but we were hamstrung in the past with our ability to kind of, put the money on the table essentially. And if it takes 50 million, but it's the guy that Arteta wants and it's the guy that fills a massive, massive hole. I'm not saying he is the answer. You know, who cares? Like, as a fan, do you really give a shit? Like, I don't really care anymore. I've gone past the point of caring how much we spend on players and not so much how much we pay them, because I guess that's a separate conversation. But yeah, so I'm hoping that it happens. And I didn't know that about the Sky Sports thing. I saw a couple of things on Twitter like an hour or two ago. But there was no kind of source. It just seemed like the talks are continuing and we've put in another offer. We're getting closer to their valuation. And I think for me, it feels like we're just trying to get him for as little as possible, sort of contradicting myself in what I said about it doesn't matter how much you put down. I guess from a fan's perspective, I don't care how much we pay, but from the club's perspective, it just feels like we're trying to get him as cheap as possible. Like you say, the kind of, we have the upper hand in terms of negotiations. We should anyway, because of, like you say, the player wants to leave and hopefully wants to come to us in the last year of the contract. And it feels like we're just trying to save that like couple of million, maybe that £5 million or so, because we know that we need to use that in other areas of the pitch. And hopefully this is the only kind of really worrying thing is, like I say, he's an attractive player, right? So if someone else comes in for him, for whatever reason, someone comes in and trumps us, that could be a little bit of it shouldn't happen, because it's like you say, it sounds like things have progressed quite well and quite far, but you just never know, right?
Because that's the risk with it dragging on, right? The risk with dragging on is that you've got teams who weren't necessarily going to go for him, and they might have had other targets, and and the more it drags on, and potentially these clubs may not be able to get the targets that they were going for, and then they start looking at, actually we need a Gabriel Jesus, or one of their players, or they weren't in the market for a striker, and actually one of their strikers wants to leave, and they have to sort that out. So again, it feels like we have an opportunity. I agree with you about the price. As a fan, I don't care. I don't care about how much we spend as a fan. The only reason I'd care is if it meant that, we wouldn't be able to do something else in the market that the squad does need. But even then, how would you know? You'd never know. I'd never know as a fan. That would never be transparent. We don't know. So, I'm really keen that we get the deal done. I guess what will make a difference, if it's a case where it does feel like, because 50 million does seem like a lot of money for anyone who's in their last year of contract, and if it is a case where City are just hardballing, then I'd be more sympathetic. But again, these things we never know. We only get to see what's reported. So at the moment, I think that, I'd be very disappointed if we didn't sign him. I think, again, with signing someone like Fabio Vieira and having Odegaard there as he is, it feels like we'll probably create a lot of chances next season. And having Gabriel Jesus, having any competent centre forward play week in, week out, they're probably going to score goals. And this is a 3-time Premier League winner. Yeah. Like, this is no joke, right? He's also going to bring that to the dressing room. He's won titles, really tough titles to win, competing against clubs like Liverpool. He's won titles, so he brings that to the dressing room, and he's got lots to prove. Someone like him doesn't move at 25 and think that they haven't got stuff that they still need to prove. They move at 25 because they have got something that they want to do, right? Because otherwise he could just stay there. He's at this club winning titles. He'll probably win another couple of trophies next season if he stays. So, he'll come and he'll want to do something. And I have a feeling that's because it's to start games regularly and show what he can do as a forward.
Agreed.
So yeah, look, exciting times. Let's see. By the next time we record, maybe we would assign him. Not really much else by way of concrete stuff going on. We know, as in new concrete links. We know the Tielemans thing kind of bubbles on. I'm just going to switch a little bit to the other big news really of today, which was about fixtures.
Yeah.
And the fixture list came out this morning. There were some leaks that came around last night. Actually, the leaks proved to be true. Actually, there was leaks that we were going to be playing Crystal Palace away on the opening weekend. That was confirmed this morning. So Arsenal play Crystal Palace on opening day of the season, which is a Friday. It's a Friday night away from home. I mean, deja fucking vu, right? Like last season, Friday night.
You need to get your. I know you're pissed off about this. I'm annoyed about it as well, but I can tell you're really annoyed about it. So I think you need to get it out of your system.
If you get it out of my system.
Yeah. Go for it, mate.
I'm annoyed about it because at the end of the day, right? Like I'm not annoyed that we've got Palace away because I completely believe and trust that. You know that was a round. I don't think they've gone and picked. Let's have Arsenal. Let's have a tough fixture for Arsenal. It's not that.
Just on that, so Liverpool. Sorry, not to interrupt. Liverpool. I think I saw something. I don't know if you saw this. Liverpool for the 4th season in a row have got one of the promoted clubs as their first game of the season. Again, I agree. I'm with you. I'm not saying there's like conspiracy theories here, but there's some weird.
I mean, so have we though, right? So we the last few seasons. So have we had Fulham away, and then we had Brentford just the last season.
We're not Liverpool, so
we're not Liverpool. I know. The thing that I'm annoyed about is just again the need to play us on the Friday night when and I think it's because there's so much narrative. Like it's obviously been chosen because there's so much they can talk about that day. It's Arsenal away from home, you know, on the opening day of the season at night under the lights again after what happened last season. Will the same things happen? Yeah. Will you know all that kind of stuff? It's going to be exactly the same narrative, exactly the bloody same, and that's what annoys me. Knowing that I'll have to listen to. Because we might not get tickets for the game, right? Because it's it's going to be hugely in demand, and we've got a lot of away credits, but it might not be enough, so we might not be there. If I'm watching at home, there's going to be bloody Gary Neville and Carragher, who basically like last season when they were celebrating with the Brentford fans, they really do want, they want Palace to win, right? They want Palace to win, so they're going to be really annoying about it. If we lose, they're going to be really annoying. They're going to be really, really annoying. And if we are there. It's a really annoying game at the opening day. Also, because we've got a bad record against Palace, right?
Yeah.
We're not good at Selhurst Park. It's not good. We rarely win. We got absolutely hammered, and it was a result last season, which the season just gone, which it was the start of those 3 games which we lost, which arguably cost us 4th place. When we really look back on it, it was that real period, wasn't it? So it's not good memories. Palace can be well up for it. They've got one of the best sets of fans in the Premier League. The atmosphere at Palace on any day is awesome. Opening day under the lights on a Friday night, everyone's going to be tanked up. It's going to be really tough for Arsenal. Like the only positive really that I could think of is, well, aside from the fact that I do think that, let's just hope that we don't have a random injury, 2 injuries on the day like we just did, this time when Tierney and Partey just, kind of were out. Well, Tierney before kickoff, Partey, after kickoff, but. The only positive is last season they had Conor Gallagher who did an absolute number on Thomas Partey, right? He absolutely marked him out the game, pressurized him, etc. And Conor Gallagher's probably not going to be there next season unless he goes back on loan. So that's the one positive that I had. Yeah. But I am annoyed about it. Look, on the plus side, it's a fixture. It's a tough fixture that could get out the way. But overall net, I'm just annoyed that it's been chosen. The other thing I know, just to finish off my rant on a positive, the thing that I did find really funny though, is that all the top 6 teams have been deemed popular enough for a TV fixture, aside from Tottenham.
Oh really? I didn't see that. I haven't. Okay.
Tottenham play at 3 p.m. on Saturday. It's just, the schmuck time of 3 p.m. We had to get used to 3 p.m.s last season because we finished 8th. We finished 8th and we had to get used to 3 p.m. Tottenham finished 4th. They can't make an opening game TV fixture. That's mad. They're the only one.
I think their fans will be happy. Right?
Even Man United at home to Brighton get a fixture. And Man United are awful.
That's all about Ten Hag, though, isn't it? Yeah, that's quite funny, actually. That is quite funny. But I guess their fans, the actual fans that are going to the match, will probably be quite happy because, as a match-going fan, you love a Saturday 3 p.m, don't you? Yeah, man. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Well, by the way, you're just being sorry. Can I interrupt? You're just being nice on Tottenham because basically for anyone, let me tell you a little story about Myers for a second. Yeah. So a really nice person commented on one of our YouTube videos. And they said they were a Tottenham fan. They identified themselves as a Tottenham fan, and they basically just said that Mize was the greatest bloke since Jesus. Basically, that's what they said, right? Words to effect, he said, he's like, he's like, what a decent, amazing, level-headed. He just said all these things.
Do you disagree?
It's not whether I disagree or not. I mean, this person identified as a Tottenham fan. You know, I'm your friend. I'm an Arsenal. I actually know you, right? This guy, and he doesn't look like a bot either. A genuine bloke, you know, with a profile who has commented on other things in the past, etc. Like, you know, and there's nothing. I mean, I considered, is it you setting up your own account, like a podcast? But it doesn't. Even my wife, she thought that's probably the case. Like, to be honest, she was like, "Come on, like."
Next time I see her.
But anyway, so this is a Tottenham fan who's basically buttered up Mize, and now look, I've just banded off Tottenham about not, and he's just like, oh yeah, well they're probably pleased on that. Anyway, moving on. That's what you did.
No, thanks, mate. Thanks for that. No, I'm not being nice about Tottenham at all. But yeah, man. Anyway, let's move on. What was I going to say? Palace. Yeah, look, I completely agree with you in terms of just it's all set up, isn't it? It's all set up, and I mean, look, there was a in terms of what happened against Brentford last season, right? There was more to it than just the result, right? There was the players that were out with COVID. I don't think we had a striker. Did we start Balogun that game?
Yeah, because there's COVID.
Yeah. So I mean, look, hopefully we're not in that, like you say, no kind of ridiculous injuries, and hopefully we don't have any COVID problems and that kind of thing, and we can kind of go pretty full strength. It's like you say, it's a tough game as it is, and this has just sort of made it a lot tougher. And yeah, I think the kind of good thing is when you look at the fixtures, when you look at the first few games, okay, look, worst case we lose to Palace. If we do lose to Palace, the following games after that are much more winnable than Chelsea and City like last season, right? So you'd like to think, you know, I think the first 6 games, Palace, Leicester, or 5 I've got here. Palace, Leicester at home, Bournemouth away, Fulham at home, Villa at home, I think.
That's August, yeah. First game against like a big 6 team in inverted commas is Man United on 3rd of September, away. But yeah, sorry, go on.
No. So I was just saying, you know, like there's obviously, I'm not saying we're going to win every game after Palace or we're going to win all of those 5 games, but there are obviously games where we can set ourselves up this season much better than last season, where obviously we were playing catch up and there was all sorts going on after those 3 losses at the start of the season. So you know, fingers crossed we could just have a better start. We should, and if we don't have a better start from those few games, then I'll be very, very worried. So yeah, I mean, overall fixtures wise, I don't know if there's the other interesting thing. I don't know if you looked at it, was the games that we have following the Europa League games, at least in the group stages.
Oh, no, I haven't.
Yeah, so it in that way, it's actually not too bad. Yeah, so I've got it here. So it's Everton at home, Brentford away, Liverpool at home, Leeds away, Nottingham Forest at home, Chelsea away.
Those are the games after.
They're the games directly after, they're the games straight after we play in the Europa League. And I guess when you look at that, you know, three home games obviously, but 2 of them in London. I mean, I'm not really one to kind of make a massive thing about, we have to travel, we have to come back and then travel like up to Liverpool and all that kind of stuff. I think I said this before. I don't think it's a huge factor. Like, it shouldn't determine if we win or lose a match. But that's not like the worst. Like, it could have been a number of away games. I guess it's split, obviously, home and away, but it could have been like really, really tough away games. I mean, Chelsea away is not easy. Leeds away is not easy, but you know, they were pretty poor last season. Brentford away, obviously, we lost last season, but yeah, they're sort of a different team now.
They are.
So,
and the really tough months for us look like October and April, don't they, on paper? So October, you know, we've got Tottenham, Liverpool, Leeds, Man City, Southampton, Nottingham Forest, quite a chunky month, yeah. So you know, and then April is interesting, right? Because if we are so fortunate and so you know, if we do well enough to still be in a lot of cup competitions, then April could have a lot of fixtures. And April, in terms of Premier League games, it's Leeds, Liverpool, West Ham, Southampton, Man City, Chelsea. You know, so that's a tough month to be in, to have, you know, latter stage cup games. If we do get that far, you know, it's going to be a tough month, right?
Yeah, and I guess if we are still in like the FA Cup, there's there's a good chance that maybe some of those games might get rearranged. I guess if they fall on FA Cup weekends. I don't even know how the schedule works anymore. I mean, it's so weird this season because of the World Cup, right? It's like the whole schedule is just very, very weird. And like you say, I mean, October and April could potentially be really, really tough months. But I think every team's probably got a tough month in there somewhere. So it just sort of is what it is. Let's see.
And some of these games, this is what it looks like right now. Some games could get moved for various reasons, but often reasons just because teams progress in the cups and FA Cup weekends, and games could get moved. So some of these fixtures will change. But yeah, look, on the face of it, interesting fixtures. Yeah, still a bit annoyed about what we've got on opening day. I would love to just be out of this. But so as much as I bantered off Tottenham, again, I would just love a 3 p.m. kickoff. To be honest, right?
Yeah.
Home 3 p.m. Palace away, wow, okay. But hey, look, at the same time, it's an opportunity to make a statement and to show kind of, how far maybe we have improved from the season before. Boys, we've been going for about an hour now. Why don't we call it a day? I think it's been a good pod with lots to talk about. One topic in particular in the first half that, just took us by surprise today, and hopefully by tomorrow, by the time many of you have listened to this podcast, we may have signed him. What will be terrible is if he signed for someone else. And then everyone's wasted their time. We wasted time. You've wasted your time. So, look, Mize, thank you, man. Like, I think you'll agree that today's been a good day to be an Arsenal fan. Just a positive feeling day.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think we needed it. I think a lot of fans needed it. And like you say, fingers crossed it kind of gets done, finalised. And yeah, a couple of the other ones that seem to be taking a little while also get completed, and it'll be nice to have the squad ready early doors this season, ready for pre-season, because it's going to be a bloody long season as well with the World Cup. So yeah, it will be. All right, mate. Well, thank you, Mize. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Please, again, we just so love your support and appreciate it. So just please do like, subscribe, share. Keep interacting with us, even if you are Tottenham fans and all you want to do is praise Mize, because you know what, it's better than nothing. Yeah. And actually, it's really nice if you don't support Arsenal and you're watching this and you bother watching this. That's really flattering, and we really appreciate it. And if you're not trolling us as well, that's even better. So that's cool. So we do appreciate it. Cool, Mize. Goodbye. Good night. Rog. Yes. Have a good one, mate. Take it easy. You too. See ya. Thank you, everyone. Bye.